Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the channel and welcome back to another very volatile day here on Wall Street, with the S&P 500 currently up about 1%, baby, and we are slow and steadily trying to claw back from the lows of 2022 that we have seen so far. Now, as you guys know, the deeper this crash gets, the more likely we are to start seeing margin calls if we get a positive reaction with AMC's stock over the next couple of months, or really whenever the markets are in this rut. And that's obviously due to collateral and margin calls. And we'll talk about that a little bit here in this video, but I really want to talk about what's happening today, earnings that are going to be happening today, the dollar, the bonds, the short interest, the Ortex data, the technicals on AMC, give you guys the scoop as far as that is concerned. But I also want to look at this article that says, is this the week AMC finally bounces back? Yes, it's from the Motley Fool, but weirdly enough, it's actually a bullish article. So let's get straight into all this information. Hit that like button and subscribe to the channel. Source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. Without any further ado, let's get straight into it, guys. So first things first, the markets are looking forward, always looking forward, no matter what time of the month or the year or the day or the second. The markets are caring about what is going to happen next. And what we have next is Thursday CPI coming out at 9:30 in the morning. I think that's pretty clear. We've talked about it a couple times, and I think everyone knows CPI is coming on Thursday. If you don't, or you didn't, now you know. And that's the biggest thing of this week, as well as you have Fed speakers, really a couple every single day, pretty much. Especially after CPI comes out on Thursday, you're going to have Fed Harker that speaks, Fed Logan that speaks, as well as Fed George that will speak as well after CPI does come out. That will be important. And then you also have the Michigan Consumer Sentiment Survey for November at 11 o'clock a.m. on Friday, and that will also be very important. And the markets really, they could go up, they could go down, but I don't expect a huge move in either direction until the CPI report actually comes out. Once that comes out, then I do expect a big move up or down. And I think that's like, anyone can say expect a move up or down, but this is going to be a big move. That's something I want to highlight. And depending on which way it goes, it could help AMC temporarily get its share price back up with a broad market rally. Or if the markets do sell off after CPI and AMC does have good earnings, it could turn out to be one of those scenarios where there's far few stocks rallying in the markets, but AMC can actually start to catch a bid. And we've talked about that a lot here on this channel. And pretty much the way it works is with margin, you either have to put up collateral, other securities, right? You could collateralize your Apple stock. Sure, they're going to take 20 to 50% right off the top of that value, and you're going to have your margin fluctuate a lot based off of your collateral, that Apple stock. But when stocks you're using as collateral goes down, or just in general, when your portfolio goes down as a hedge fund, your short positions remain the same, your margin remains the same. And at that point, if your shorts go against you and your overall portfolio value is going down, well, that is not a very good thing. So there is that, and I think that is very important nonetheless. But on top of that, you have AMC earnings, and Cineworld just reported earnings last week, and their earnings were not that great, but they rallied. And I think that's a very optimistic kind of perspective to go into AMC. And it's not because this last quarter was good. This last quarter is not going to be good. But what Adam Aron has to say about the next quarter, that is what potentially could be very good. Now, let's get into what is actually happening here in the day in the markets. And the dollar, you can track this using UUP. It's the Invesco DB US Dollar Bullish Index. And this is down 0.65%. When this is down, that is very good. When this is up, it's very bad. Watch this on a daily basis. It can kind of make the markets make a little bit more sense, right? And you can look at the spike over here as the COVID crash, and obviously as the dollar went down after the COVID crash, the markets went up. As the dollar has went up throughout 2022, the markets have been going down. There is a direct correlation to the dollar going up or down and what the markets are going to do, especially in 2022. Now, what is equally, if not more important, is TLT, the bonds. And TLT is down about 0.5% today. And when TLT goes down, that is negative. That means bond yields are going up. This is probably in anticipation of the CPI report coming out, and the markets are probably expecting CPI, to come in pretty hot, and that's obviously not going to be a good thing. And it looks like the markets, or the bond market I should say, might be snitching a little bit and saying, hey, CPI might come out hotter than expected. That's why we are selling off the bonds. So that's something I'm paying very close attention to, especially leading into Thursday, what the bonds are doing and where the yields are going. A lot of the time, big money managers, they already know what these reports are at least going to look like before they're actually released. That's why it's important to also look at positioning. What are hedge funds doing? Are there a lot of calls going through, a lot of puts going through? What's the total open interest of puts and calls on any given option expiration? And that's what we're going to do right now. If we look at AMC and we look at the total open interest for calls and puts by this Friday, calls sits at 65.28% and puts sits at 34.72%. So the total amount of options that are actually being placed on AMC over the past couple of weeks and months for this earnings report, a 2-to-1 ratio is calls to put. So a lot of people are actually betting that AMC stock will actually go higher after earnings. And I think that is very important to point out and can be pretty valuable for especially you guys to know as AMC investors. Now, also, if we take a look at the cost to borrow rates for the day, you're sitting at 19.83% cost to borrow max, cost to borrow average of 19.19%, and a cost to borrow minimum of 18.33%. The short interest is sitting at 20.18%. The amount of shares that is currently sold short sits at 104 million shares. And these numbers are very high. As you know, 20% short interest is extremely high short interest, and the number is likely a lot higher than that. And that's why this whole situation especially is very bad if the markets keep going down and AMC can post some good earnings. It could make for a very bullish situation for AMC, and it could happen very, very suddenly. Now, if we also take a look at this article, it says, is this the week AMC finally bounces back? And I think the biggest key to actually point out here is what is going to be said about next quarter. Because if you read this article right here, or I'm going to read it for you, it says AMC shareholders are hungry for a break. They could get one this week. Black Panther, Wakanda Forever hits theaters on Thursday night, and it's a lock to be the country's second highest grossing film of 2022. More importantly, AMC itself reports financial results on Tuesday. There will be a lot of eyes on AMC Entertainment stock this week. And it says Tuesday's afternoon's quarterly report won't be perfect, pitted against where the leading multiplex operator was before the pandemic. The industry's domestic box office receipts for the third quarter were nearly 32% below where they were for the same 3 months in 2019. Smaller rival Cinemark announced its third quarter results last week, posting a 21% decline in revenue from where it was 3 years ago. Investors walked away generally pleased with Cinemark's numbers, sending the shares 8% higher in an otherwise sinking market. AMC didn't climb in sympathy, falling 13% for the week. The 21% gap in performance between the two stocks is something to keep in mind, as what's good for Cinemark Cinemark could be even better for AMC shareholders this week. Analysts see $961.1 million in revenue for AMC's third quarter, a 27% slide from where it was in the same summertime quarter in 2019. That's a much bigger drop than what Cinemark just delivered, but it doesn't seem warranted. Cinemark and AMC landed fairly close last time out, 22.3% to 22.5% behind their second quarter results from 2019. In short, a top line beat could be in the works. So they're saying AMC is likely to even beat earnings on the top line. But the last paragraph right here is the most important one in my personal opinion. It says the current quarter is faring even worse for exhibitors, with period to date ticket sales clocking in 43% lower. You can be sure that Aaron will pivot, hyping up upcoming releases, including Wakanda Forever and the first of several Avatar sequels, bringing patrons back to the local cinema during the potent holiday season. And that is a key. If AMC can beat on their actual revenue numbers, potentially even give us a small profit, and they guide good for next quarter, that is going to be very, very positive. And I think Avatar, some of these blockbuster movies are going to be talked about a lot and potentially hype up investors, and you could get some bullish optimism heading into those earnings. Now, as far as the earnings picture here in after hours, you have Diamondback Energy, Mosaic, Lyft, Activision Blizzard, Solar Edge, Take-Two Interactive, Clover, Shockwave, TripAdvisor, and Five9. You guys can pause the screen and look through all of these earnings if you have not seen this already, or just go to earningswhisper.com or Earnings Whisper over here on Twitter. They break it down with some of the most important earnings. Obviously, there's a lot of companies that are not on this that will be reporting earnings, but they're going to have your well-known names, and look at that. Lo and behold, AMC stock will be reporting tomorrow in after hours, guys. So that is pretty much it. If we take a look at AMC as far as a technical basis, you know, the stock's in the toilet. You are at your 2022 lows. So in my opinion, like that article said, it's probably not going to take a lot of good news to actually rally investors and to get the stock to make a pretty decent move up. And if that happens, you could be sitting close to $7.47 in a very, very short amount of time. That's the 50-day moving average, and considering how cheap these options are on AMC, there could be a lot of money to be made with the options, but in my personal opinion, shares is probably the way to go, even at its valuation at $3 billion, considering how many theaters they actually do own and operate, how many screens they operate, how big of a potential it could be for another company like Netflix or Amazon to buy out the company at $3 billion. It actually makes a lot more sense now than it did before. And obviously, if something along those lines is said, that would probably be very bullish here in the near term. Obviously, we probably don't want that to happen over the longer term. But hey, we'll see what happens. You're sitting at a 56.8% probability of a 50 basis point rate hike and a 43.2% probability of a 75 basis point rate hike heading into the next Fed meeting, December 14th. You also want to watch this, FedRateMonitorTool.com, to get the probabilities for a 50 or 75 basis point rate hike coming at the next Fed meeting, guys. So that is going to be all for this video. Hit that like button, subscribe to the channel, source your comments, questions, or concerns down below in the comment section. That is going to be all for this video. I will see you guys in the next one.